Elliot stood near the back of the hall, his hands behind his back and his eyes scanning the alien crowd. He wasn't a leader, not even a diplomat. He was a medical observer from Earth, chosen because he had studied alien biology and psychology. He was told to watch, record health data, and stay quiet. You are not to speak. His commander had warned before he left Earth. Just observe, no opinions, no interference. So Elliot watched. The grand hall was made of crystal and light, towering above all of them like a glowing mountain. Banners from over 40 alien worlds hung from the ceiling. The air smelled of different spices and chemicals from other species. He saw green-scaled beings with wide eyes, floating jellyfish-like creatures pulsing softly, and tall fur-covered diplomats whispering in their own language. But every single one of them stayed silent. When Empress Cholera entered the hall, she was tall, elegant, with silver blue skin and golden eyes that didn't blink. She moved like water and spoke like a song. Her voice could fill the space and make even the bravest generals pause. She smiled often, and people clapped. But Elliot's trained eye saw something different. He saw fear. Whenever she passed a group of aides, they stood straighter and kept their heads low. Her ministers never relaxed. Guards near her barely moved at all. The smile on their faces looked forced, their muscles tight, their eyes nervous. Even their breathing changed. It was small things. Things no one would notice unless they were trained. Elliot had studied trauma behavior for years. He'd seen it on Earth victims who acted fine but carried stress in their bodies. Signs that something was wrong. At first, Elliot thought maybe it was just the pressure of being near power. Maybe the Empress ruled with strict discipline. That was common. But over the next few days, he saw more signs. Servants with bruises they tried to hide. An aide with a broken finger wrapped in poor cloth. Minister who had fainted and whispered, "I'm sorry," again and again while waking up. He tried to stay quiet, that was his job. But every time he wrote notes for his report, his hand shook. The truth was becoming clear. On the third day, he visited the medical chamber. He asked to check some routine scans for research. While there, a young alien assistant limped into the room. She looked thin and tired, her eyes wide with fear. She didn't speak, but she held out her arm. Elliot scanned her quietly. Multiple injuries. Nothing fresh, but all recent. Stress levels were high. He knelt down and whispered, "Are you safe?" The girl's lips trembled. "Don't talk. Don't ask," she said. "If she knows you saw me, your world will be punished." Leah froze. His stomach turned cold. She didn't say who she was. She didn't need to. He already knew. When the girl left, Elliot stood still for a long time. He was just a human doctor in a hall full of powerful aliens. Earth had only recently joined the Galactic Union. They had no place to cause trouble, but something inside him burned. Not anger, not pride. It was that same feeling he had when he treated a child on Earth who had been too scared to speak. That feeling that silence could be dangerous, that sometimes saying nothing was the same as letting pain continue. But he didn't act, not yet. On the fourth day, the Empress held a grand ceremony. The crystal hall was full. 10,000 aliens sat in rows, each one from a different world. This event was to celebrate peace and power, hosted by Empress Cholera herself. One by one, leaders gave short greetings. Nothing serious, just words of thanks, smiles, small jokes. The crowd clapped politely. Elliot stood at the far corner with other observers. He had no speech prepared. He wasn't on the list to speak. He was told not to. Then suddenly Empress Cholera turned to him. "What of the human?" she asked, her voice echoing. "He has been so quiet. Perhaps he has something to share." Elliot's heart stopped. He looked at the other human delegates. They stared back at him, their faces pale. One shook his head slightly, a warning. But thousands of eyes were now on him. The cameras hovered in the air. His name appeared on the screen behind the Empress. "Please, step forward," Cholera said kindly. "Just a few words from Earth." Elliot's legs moved on their own. He walked slowly to the front. Every step felt heavy. He could hear his heart beat louder than the cheers. He saw the Empress smile at him, beautiful and cold. He reached the center of the stage. The microphone glowed. The crowd waited. His voice was quiet. "My name is Elliot. I am a medical observer from Earth." He could stop there, say thank you, walk away. But the words in his heart pushed forward. "I have seen something here," he said. "Something not just physical, but deep. I've noticed patterns, behaviors, signs." The crowd leaned in. The Empress tilted her head slightly. "I study trauma," Elliot continued, "and I have seen it among the aides, the guards, the ministers. Signs of fear, of silence, of injury." Gasps rose from a few in the crowd. Someone whispered loudly, "What is he doing?" Elliot looked at the Empress. "And the source is not illness, not war. It is one person." Her golden eyes narrowed. Elliot took a breath. "You." The hall went silent. The hall remained frozen. Not a whisper, not a breath. Even the floating light drones paused in midair, blinking softly in the silence. Elliot's words echoed in everyone's minds. He had pointed to the Empress of the Voron Union, the most powerful leader in that part of the galaxy. She sat tall on her crystal throne, her golden eyes watching him. Her smile was gone now. The warmth had faded from her face. Her fingers rested lightly on the side of her chair. But Elliot noticed the twitch. She was tense. A low voice broke. The silence. "He must be joking," one alien delegate said, trying to laugh. "This is just a misunderstanding." But the joke didn't land. The crowd still didn't move. Many were staring not at the Empress, but at each other. It was as if Elliot had broken a wall that kept them all quiet. The Empress finally stood up. She walked slowly toward Elliot, each step graceful, but there was something behind her movement now, something sharp. "Earth is new to the galactic." "Table," she said, her voice smooth. "Your people still learn our customs. You speak with passion, human but perhaps too much emotion and too little understanding." Elliot looked into her eyes. He saw no confusion there, only control. "I spoke based on evidence," he said. "Biological scans, behavior patterns, fear responses, hidden injuries. These are not guesses. These are medical facts." A quiet murmur ran through the crowd. "You accuse a leader of cruelty," she said. Without proof, Leah took out a small disc and held it up. "These are anonymous scans and recordings. I collected them over the past 3 days. If anyone doubts my words, they can view the data." The Empress turned back to her throne. Her robes moved like water behind her. "And if someone planted lies into your reports?" she asked softly. "What then?" "Then let others review it," Elliot said. "Let healers and scientists from other planets see it, not just humans." Silence again. The crowd shifted. One by one, eyes moved from Elliot to the Empress, then to each other. Finally, a short, round alien with glowing blue fur raised his voice. "May I speak?" He was the ambassador from Saravel, a peaceful planet known for their honesty. The Empress gave a small nod. "My people have served under the Voron for many years," the ambassador said. "We have never dared say it, but we too have felt fear. We were told not to ask questions, not to speak of lost workers. Our young leaders grow quiet after returning from meetings. We thought it was just stress. Maybe it's not." Others now looked uncomfortable. A tall insectoid female clicked her mandibles. "3 of my aides resigned after coming here. They refused to explain why," the reptilian commander added. "We once challenged her rule long ago. After that, our colony ships were delayed for months. Many died." The Empress raised a hand. "Stop," she said calmly. Everyone stopped. "This is dangerous," she continued. "Rumors, doubt, division. This human brings nothing but chaos." Elliot spoke again. "I brought the truth. And it is not chaos. It is clarity." She stared. "At him? You speak boldly, Doctor. But there are rules here. You have broken them." 2 guards stepped forward. They were Voron soldiers, armored in silver with weapons glowing at their sides. Elliot's pulse quickened, but he stood tall. "You can punish me," he said, "but the truth is already out. They heard me. They saw what I saw. Even if I vanish, the truth will remain. The Empress looked at the audience. Her calm mask was cracking. She saw too many uncertain faces. Too many doubting eyes. Leave him, she ordered the guards. For now. Elliot let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. The meeting ended quickly after that. No music, no closing speech. The crowd left in silence. Elliot was guided back to his quarters by two quiet aides. He didn't know if they were protecting him or watching him. In his room, he sat down on the small bed and stared at the wall. His hands shook a little. He hadn't planned to speak, hadn't prepared anything. But once the words came out, he couldn't stop. The silence inside him had broken. A soft knock came on the door. He stood and opened it. The aide from the medical bay, the young one with the limp, stood there. She looked nervous. "You spoke the truth," she said quietly. "Are you safe?" he asked. She nodded. "For now?" She handed him a small glowing chip. "This is more data, things we were afraid to report. Others collected it secretly. We all wanted someone to speak." He took the chip, carefully placing it inside his bag. "Thank you," he said. She gave a small bow and left. That night, Elliot didn't sleep. News was already spreading across the station. Messages were being sent between delegates. Some wanted answers. Some wanted action. A few even wanted to leave the Voron alliance. And somewhere deep in the palace, the Empress was likely planning her next move. But Elliot wasn't afraid. He had stayed quiet too long. Now he had spoken, and the galaxy had listened. The morning after Elliot's speech, the station felt different. The grand halls were still bright, the guards still stood in place, and the Empress still held power. But a strange tension filled the air, like a storm waiting just outside. Whispers followed Elliot wherever he walked. Some stared at him with awe, others with fear, and a few with quiet respect. No one tried to stop him yet, but something was coming. He felt it. Back in his room, Elliot sat by a small table, going through the new data chip the alien aide had given him. There were video clips, medical scans, secret messages. The evidence showed injuries that were covered up, reports that had been edited, and long lists of staff who had disappeared. All of it pointed in one direction. Award Empress Cholera. He copied the files onto 3 different drives and sent them to trusted researchers on neutral planets. He made sure the files were backed up again and again. If he was taken away, the truth would still spread. A message appeared on his screen. It was from the ambassador of Saravel, the small blue alien who had spoken during the ceremony. "We believe you, but she won't go down quietly. Stay alert." Elliot sent a short reply. "Thank you, Dan. I'm ready." Just as he finished, the door to his room opened without a sound, for Voron soldiers walked in. Their armor reflected the lights above. Behind them stood a tall woman in dark robes, an advisor to the Empress. "Dr. Elliot," she said calmly, "you are to be questioned in the Chamber of Order." "Am I under arrest?" he asked. "No," she replied. "But if you refuse, we will assume guilt and act accordingly." Elliot stood. "I'll come." They walked through silent corridors. No one else was around. It was too quiet. As they reached the chamber, the doors opened by themselves. The room inside was round, with walls that glowed soft blue. The Empress sat in the center, surrounded by members of her High Council. "Dr. Tuk," she said, her voice smooth but sharp underneath. "You've caused quite a stir." Elliot didn't sit. "I told the truth." "Truth," she repeated, "or a story designed to make me look weak. Your own people are scared of you." He said, "They came to me not because I'm powerful, but because they knew I'd listen." Cholera leaned forward slightly. "Do you think you are a hero?" "No," Elliot answered. "I think I'm just someone who couldn't ignore suffering. Do you realize what you've done?" she said. "The Voron Union holds half this sector together. Your words have made allies question our unity. Trade is slowing. Leaders are hesitating, and maybe they should," he said. "If peace is built on fear, it's not real peace." The council members whispered among themselves. Some looked worried, some angry. 1 or 2 looked thoughtful. "We have reviewed your data," Cholera said. Some of it is troubling, but it proves nothing directly against me. Then allow outside doctors to review it, Elliot replied. Open the palace for interviews. Let your own staff speak freely. Her golden eyes narrowed. I do not answer to outsiders. Then you have something to hide, he said calmly. The room went still. Kahalara stood slowly. You speak boldly. Human. But this is my world, not yours. If I wished I could have you removed from this station, you could, Elliot said. But that would only confirm everything I've said. If I vanish, the story won't vanish with me. Kahalara stared at him for a long moment. Then she raised her hand. Leave him. Let him speak. For now. Elliot turned and walked out with the guards as soon as he was alone again. He sent out a new message to several ambassadors. She refuses open review. I suggest a council meeting without her. Neutral ground. We must act together. Within the hour, he received replies. The Saravel ambassador agreed. So did 3 others. One even offered a private room for the meeting. The silent wave had become a current now, growing stronger with each hour. But not everyone was pleased. That night, as Elliot left the dining hall, he noticed 2 figures watching from the shadows. He didn't stop walking. He acted normal, but his heart raced. He ducked into a side corridor and changed direction, taking a path few used. Behind him, footsteps followed. He turned a sharp corner and hid behind a thick column. When the 2 figures passed by, he got a good look. They were palace guards, but not in normal armor. This wasn't official business. Elliot slipped away quietly. He knew what this meant. The Empress was done playing polite. The next morning, more news spread through the station. 3 aides had spoken out to off-world reporters. They described punishment rooms, silent threats, and forced loyalty. 2 planets paused their trade with the Vorin. 1 delegate called for a public vote. The galaxy was waking up. Inside his room, Elliot opened his terminal, started writing a full report, not for Earth, but for everyone. Described everything what he saw, what he learned, how fear had hidden behind beauty. He ended the report with 1 sentence. Silence allows cruelty to grow. And then he sent it. Not to 1 person, but to the galaxy. Within hours of Elliot's report being sent out, the galaxy began to react. His message was simple, but powerful. It spread across communication networks faster than any official announcement. Leaders, healers, researchers, and ordinary people read his words. Some were shocked. Others weren't surprised at all. Many had suspected something was wrong for years, but they had been too afraid to speak. Now someone had spoken for them. Manned. Not just anyone. A human. A newcomer to the galactic stage. Someone with no power. No army, and no political ties. But he had spoken with truth. And truth, it turned out, traveled faster than fear. Ambassadors from 10 different worlds demanded a special session without the Empress present. They called it an independent council review. For the first time in many cycles, the Vorin Empire wasn't in control of the agenda. Empress Kahalara stayed silent publicly. No speeches, no answers, no new statements. But behind the scenes, she moved quickly. Her guards doubled. Her ministers were replaced one by one. And those who had supported Elliot suddenly found their communications blocked. Elliot knew he was in danger. But he didn't run. Instead, he spent his days gathering more evidence, talking with delegates, and helping others find the courage to speak. His room became a quiet hub for truth. Sometimes, 3 or 4 alien aides would arrive one after another, each with stories, files, or small recordings hidden in their hands. One evening, a tall insectoid named Velcro entered Elliot's quarters. She had once served directly under Kahalara. Her voice buzzed low as she spoke. "You need to leave this station," she said. "Why?" Elliot asked. "She will strike soon. Not with soldiers, with silence. She will make you disappear. No cameras, no questions, just gone." Elliot looked at her. "I can't leave now. People are starting to speak. If I vanish, they might stop. If you die, the story might die with you, Velcro said. Elliot thought for a moment, then handed her a data chip. If anything happens to me, send this to every neutral leader, every public archive. Make sure the truth survives. Velcro nodded and left without another word. The next day, the independent council meeting began. 17 leaders attended. The room was far from the Vorin Palace, in a secured zone controlled by a neutral planet. Empress Kolara was not invited. Elliot sat among them, not as a leader, but as a witness, one by one. Delegates shared their stories, how their staff had returned shaken, how agreements had been changed by threats, how silence had become a rule. In the Empress's presence, some cried, some grew angry. Others just nodded, as if they'd waited years to finally speak. Then the data was reviewed. Files from injured aides, video clips showing secret punishments, medical scans proving long-term harm. Everything matched Elliot's early signs. Even those who had doubted now looked troubled. This is more than one leader's cruelty, the ambassador from Saravel said. This is a system built on fear. We were blind, another delegate whispered. Elliot stood to speak last. This isn't about one species or one empire. This is about truth. And truth must always matter, especially when it's dangerous. Council voted. 15 agreed to begin a full investigation. 2 stayed silent. Outside, word spread. Peaceful protests broke out on several planets. Staff began refusing to return to the Vorin Palace. 3 important ministers resigned. Even members of Cholera's own inner circle requested temporary leave. But Empress Cholera was not quiet for long. The next day she spoke publicly. In front of the entire Voron Empire, we are under attack, she said, her voice calm but fierce. A false story spreads through our stars, lies from outsiders who do not understand our way of life. The human observer has no authority here, and those who follow him threaten our peace. Our supporters cheered, but many did not. In homes across the empire, people re-watched the reports. They saw the videos, read the words, and for the first time, they questioned what they had always believed. Elliot received a message from an anonymous source. It said, "She's planning to arrest you tonight. Leave the station, or prepare." Elliot didn't run. Instead, he sent out a live transmission from his room. The background was plain. The message was clear. "I'm still here," he said. "Want to silence me? But the truth is already yours. You don't need me to keep it alive. You just need to keep asking questions." His message was shared millions of times within an hour. In the middle of the night, the door to his room opened. But it wasn't the Empress's guards. It was a group of diplomats from 5 different worlds. It formed a small protective group, volunteers, not soldiers. Just leaders who refused to let a voice be silenced again. "We'll keep watch," they said. And they did. For the first time, Empress Cholera could not act in the shadows. The world was watching now. For many years, Empress Cholera had ruled through fear. She didn't need armies in the streets or loud threats. She used silence, shame, and quiet punishment. No one dared speak against her. No one dared question her rule. But now, something had changed. The galaxy was no longer silent. After Elliot's open broadcast and the Independent Council's vote, things moved fast. Messages of support came from dozens of planets. Even some inside the Vorin Empire citizens, doctors, teachers began to whisper the word truth. In the shadows, Cholera tried to hold power. She gave speeches about tradition, loyalty, and honor. She said the galaxy had been poisoned by outsider lies. But her voice no longer controlled the room like before. More and more, her words felt cold and empty. Her ministers started resigning. Her staff avoided her eyes. Even her guards, once loyal without question, looked unsure when she passed. Meanwhile, Elliot continued his quiet work. He was not leading any protest. He was not trying to become a hero. He simply answered questions, shared what he knew, and helped others come forward. His room became a center of quiet hope. Every hour, more people came. Not just aides or staff, but ambassadors, scientists, even young students who had grown up. Under Cholera's rule, one evening, a Vorin elder came to visit. She walked with a cane, her back bent with age. She had served in the Empress's court long ago. You remind me of someone, she told Elliot softly. Who? He asked. My daughter, she said. She once asked too many questions. Told me she died in an accident, but I never believed them. Elliot didn't speak. He only nodded. The elder placed a small stone on the table. This holds her voice, a memory crystal. It might help. When she left, Elliot activated the crystal. A soft young voice filled the room. The girl spoke of dreams for a better future. Then her voice shook. She talked about seeing someone punished for speaking out. And then silence. The crystal ended. Elliot sat still for a long time. The next morning, he added the recording to the growing archive of voices from across the empire. Real stories, real pain, real truth. The Independent. Council decided to take stronger steps. It would not wait for the empire to change on its own. Instead, they sent inspectors, medical teams, and neutral observers into Vorin territory. They would go to cities, schools, and work camps. They would talk to people. Listen. Record.ca Lara tried to stop them, but many planets refused her commands. You no longer speak for us, said one young leader during a broadcast. HFY Lara responded by locking down her palace. She replaced her guards with machines. She blocked communication in the core district. But even inside her walls, cracks had begun to form. A group of her own aides sent a message to the council. We are ready to testify. Back in his quarters, Elliot received a message from Earth. Superiors thanked him for his service, but warned that he had gone beyond his assigned duties. Your safety cannot be guaranteed, the message said. You may return now. He stared at the words for a long time. Then he closed the message without replying. Later that day, the ambassador from Saravel visited him. Small blue alien had become one of Elliot's strongest supporters. We're forming a new alliance, he said, based on healing and transparency, not power. That's good, Elliot said. We want you to help us lead it. Elliot looked surprised. I'm not a leader, no, the ambassador smiled. But you're someone who listened. Someone who spoke when no one else would. Elliot nodded slowly. I'll help. In the days that followed, the protests inside the Vorin Empire grew. People marched with simple signs that said, We see you. They didn't shout. They didn't throw stones. They simply stood together, silently like Elliot had once done. And then the moment came. On the 48th day since Elliot's speech, a group of Empress Cholera's own advisors called a meeting without her. They had the support of enough ministers and planetary governors to make a real change. They demanded that Cholera step down. The Empress did not go quietly. She tried to speak again, tried to claim betrayal, but her voice no longer carried power. In a quiet announcement broadcast across the stars, the council confirmed her removal. She was no longer Empress. Her rule had ended. When the news reached Elliot, he sat quietly, watching the message. The same hall where she once walked with pride was now empty. Her banner was gone. The symbol of the Vorin Empire had been replaced with a new one shaped like a circle of stars, each different, each equal. He didn't cheer. He didn't shout. He simply closed his eyes and whispered, They did it. Because in the end, it wasn't about him. It was about all the others who had spoken up. The ones who had been scared. The ones who had been hurt. The ones who had found their voice because someone else dared to speak first. Months had passed since Empress Cholera stepped down. The galaxy, once full of quiet fear, now began to breathe again. The banners of the old Vorin Empire were taken down from government buildings. New symbols appeared, circles, open hands, stars, all signs of unity and healing. Some planets held celebrations, others held quiet ceremonies for the ones who had suffered in silence for too long. But the work wasn't over. Truth had broken the silence. But now healing had to follow. Elliot stayed on the station, though many advised him to return home. Earths had offered him awards and medals. People called him brave. Reporters wanted interviews, but he refused the spotlight. He knew this story wasn't about him. He spent his time working with new leaders and healers. His room had changed from a quiet corner into a center for rebuilding. Every day, more people visited, some came to share. Stories, others came to ask for guidance. He listened to them all. A new council had formed, made up of former Vorin members, neutral diplomats, and representatives from peaceful worlds. They called themselves the Circle of Care. Their goal was simple: protect voices, defend truth, and never let fear rule again. Elliot was asked to be part of it, not as a leader, but as an advisor. He agreed. The first task of the Circle was to build safe zones, places where former aides, workers, and staff could come without fear. Doctors and counselors from different species volunteered. These zones were peaceful, filled with light, warmth, and kindness. One day, while Elliot walked through one of the safe zones, a young alien child ran up to him. "Are you the human who made the Empress go away?" the child asked. Elliot smiled gently. He said, "I just helped others find their voices." The child nodded, then ran back to play with friends. That moment stayed in Elliot's heart, back at the central station. The old chamber where cholera once ruled had been changed. It was no longer a throne room. Now it was a place of open discussion. Leaders sat in circles, not on high chairs. Everyone had a voice. During the first session, the ambassador of Saravel stood and spoke. "We are here because someone broke the silence. Not with anger, not with violence, but with truth. Let that guide us from now on." Many nodded. The insectoid leader Velcro also stood. "I once warned Elliot that he would disappear. But instead, the fear disappeared. May that be our lesson?" Slowly, systems across the galaxy began to change. Schools taught young ones how to speak up. Leaders were checked by independent groups. Workers were allowed to report mistreatment safely. New laws were made to protect all voices. Elliot continued his work, helping design a galaxy-wide support network. He created simple tools to help others detect signs of emotional harm, just like he had done in that grand hall months ago. One night, he received a message from Earth. "Return home when ready. Your family misses you." He smiled. He missed home too. Missed the blue skies, the smell of coffee, the calm evenings. But something told him he had one more thing to do. The following week, he returned to the same hall where he had first spoken out. This time, there were no banners, no golden lights, no Empress, just people, thousands of them. From all over the galaxy, they had gathered for a new event, the Day of Voices. It was meant to honor everyone who had suffered in silence and everyone who had spoken when it was hard. Elliot was invited to speak, but he didn't stand alone. He stood with 10 others, each from different worlds. Some were former aides, some former rebels, some just regular citizens. They all shared short stories, real stories. And the crowd listened, not with cheers, but with respect. When it was Elliot's turn, he spoke simply. "I was sent here to stay quiet, to just observe. But what I saw could not be ignored. And when I spoke, I was scared. I thought I would be punished. But instead, I found others who had waited for someone to speak first." He paused and looked at the sea of faces. "This is not my story anymore. It's all of ours, since silence is no longer stronger than truth." The crowd stood in silence for a moment, then slowly began to clap. Not loud, not wild, just steady, warm claps that echoed with meaning. That night, Elliot walked outside the station and looked at the stars. They seemed brighter, not because anything had changed in the sky, but because something had changed in the hearts of those who lived under it. He sent a final message to Earth. "I'll be coming home, but not alone. I'm bringing back hope." And with that, the human who had once been told to stay quiet became a symbol of change, not because he shouted, but because he dared to speak when it mattered most.